In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory to Jesus Christ. And Christ says, "And now come I to thee, and these things I speak in the world, that they might have my joy fulfilled in themselves." So the Lord, as he's about to ascend, says to his Father, "Father, may my joy be in them." Beloved, there's a very great image that I can give to you. A great war has just ended. Very terrible war. Ferocious war. And this war has ended. And the people have won. And they are rejoicing. They are parading their enemies through the streets. They have won this terrible war. And now, having seen so much death and so much suffering, they bring forward the young men who have been successful in this war, who have been glorified. And the people are filled with joy to the point of weeping when they see these young men who've come back. And they march them up to the president, and he hangs around the medals. And the people are ecstatic. They're in ecstasy over this. Because the joy of these men is their joy. The victory that they have won is their victory. They have won this. These men have given them peace. Our people are safe because of what these men have done. And so the people rejoice exceedingly. When heroes are glorified, the people are glorified. And they are full of joy. Ecstatic joy. Beloved, one of the best stories of the Scriptures that everyone knows and everyone loves is the story of David. When he faces Goliath and he is young. David is so young. Probably a young man. Probably not a boy, but probably a late teenager. And he faces down Goliath and he kills him. And David is so humble and yet so unmatched. He shouldn't win this. He shouldn't even do it. And yet he has so much humility. And the king says, "Well, if you're brave, I'll put you in my armor." So I can't fight in your armor, O king. I'm not going to. And with great bravery, he goes up against Goliath. And Goliath is such an image of Satan. He's so large, so powerful, and so arrogant, and so ridiculous. And David kills him with one shot and fells him to the ground. And the best part of the story is the part in which the entire army watches this. This is done between the two armies. All of Israel's there. David's brothers are there. Everybody's there watching. Because Goliath has been threatening the Jews for, weeks and weeks. Taunting them, threatening them. And he dies in front of the entire army. And in front of the entire Philistine army as well. And David in that moment is glorified. He's glorified exceedingly in this moment. And this is the best part of the story. We just think, oh my goodness, David has been honored. And we are so full of joy. And David, of course, is honored even more because he's brought to the king. The king honors him even more. He gives him his daughter to marry. This is an image of Christ. This image of David. Just as Goliath is an image of the devil, David is such an image of Christ. Such an image. And yet, beloved, David's story is interesting because it's the story of the hero. Of course, a very biblical hero, a very godly hero. And yet all the nations have heroes. They all do. Perseus, Theseus, Hercules, Odysseus. Let's see. Aeneas, many heroes. Are they good icons as David is? No, they're not icons of Christ the way David is. In the perfect sense, David is a very good icon of Christ. Theseus is not so much. But, how do I say it to you? Theseus still is an image. Why? Because he's the hero. And all men had waited from the beginning of time for the hero that will come. The hero that was promised to Adam. Men wait for this. And even if we glorify a war hero, in a sense we're glorifying Christ, because what we're all waiting for is the hero who will fight the war, who will win the victory, who will give us what we need, who will give us lasting peace. And so every hero that has ever been written is in a sense an image of Christ, and always has been. Always. It is the meta story of mankind. So let's move ahead to the book of Apocalypse. John is having this vision. And this vision, at this point, an angel comes down, this mighty angel, and he has a scroll. And he says, "Who is worthy to read of this scroll that has 7 seals on it?" And it says they search heaven, they search earth, they even search under the earth, those in Hades. And it says no man can open this scroll. No one can. No one is worthy. And John is so caught up in this that he starts to cry. He actually sobs over this. He says no one is worthy, and he starts sobbing. And all of a sudden, one of the 24 elders who's on the throne says, "Why are you weeping, brother? The Lamb of God, the Lion of Judah, he will open it." This is what he says. He says, "Do not weep. Behold the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David." See, we go back to David, who's the image of the hero. "Has overcome to open the scroll and the 7 seals, and its 7 seals." So he has overcome. He's overcome. He's won. Now he can open the seals. So Christ is this hero. He's the only one who's overcome the world and transcended. He's the only one who's been born of a woman and yet has overcome it. Everyone else who's born of women has gone down. But Christ has not. He has gone up. No one else has walked in this world without without being able to overcome the evil one by his own strength. Only Christ has done this. The Mother of God, she did this by the strength of God, by her own desire, or by God's grace. Christ, of his own power, with the strength of his own arm, has done this. He has done this. So Christ is the measure of everything. He's the measure of all. Like the hero is the measure. What we set up as our heroes is the measure of us. What are we like? What are our heroes like? What do we want to aspire to? Christ is the ultimate measure. And yet, beloved, he has been rejected in a sense. If you go to the time of the Enlightenment, right, people begin to say, no, the things of God do not matter. The saints do not matter. Those who aspire to be like Christ do not matter. The men who search the world, these matter. The men who plumb the depths of the oceans, who exalt their eyes to the stars, these are the only things that matter. And yet none of these men can transcend the world. It is good to explore the ocean. It is good to look at the stars. But none of these men will transcend anything of this world, and they don't. And so the heroes that came to us in that time, and from that time forward, have been merely political heroes, merely explorers, merely scientists, merely writers, but not necessarily men of God anymore. If we go back to the Middle Ages, the saints were everything. Men explored the world, but for them the highest thing was the saint. The highest thing was the hero of Christ, and those who have become like him. But from the time of the Enlightenment forward, no, not really anymore. We have new heroes, we have new desires, and new aspirations, and new measurements. Really, man has become the measurement of himself. And that's what our world is like today. Our heroes are merely the measurements of man. But what is the measure of man? What is the height of man? The depth of his grave, that's the height of man, is the depth of his coffin, the depth that he's going to be buried in. And yet, today, the Father has raised Christ all the way up to the highest place, the highest possible place. A man sits on the throne of God himself. He goes all the way up to God's throne and sits there. The Father brings him up. He glorifies the hero. He glorifies Christ. So what is the height of man now? As high as God's throne is. That's the height of mankind. How long will man reign? As long as Christ reigns on the throne of his Father, that is how long men have. For eternity. Unto ages of ages. What is the measure of man? Perfection. Perfection of Christ. Merely moral perfection? No. Deification. Knowledge? Created knowledge? No. The knowledge of God. Right? Created knowledge is good, but created knowledge is so limited. Why would we glorify a mere created knowledge? We want the knowledge of God. We want the knowledge of true holiness, true perfection. That's what sits at the throne of God. That's what the measure of man is now, is this. So the Father has set him in the highest place. Why? So we can lift our aspirations there. Our eyes are up there. Our desires are there. Our longings are there. Our measurement is there. We measure everything on the basis of this, on what Christ has done. The hero is the one who pushes the boundaries, or the boundaries of courage. The hero is the one who goes to the very edge of what men think they can do in war or in anything or in exploration. But Christ has pushed the boundaries to the furthest extent. He's pushed them infinitely. That's why men will dwell with him for all eternity. If Christ hasn't fulfilled this capacity for us, this capacity of aspiration, this capacity of hero, then we have nothing. We will never leave this world. We will never move beyond it. We'll be stuck in the cycles of it always. And the world does move in cycles, from this place to this place, from this tyranny to this revolution. It doesn't matter. The world has always done this and will continue to do it. But without Christ, we don't leave it. We can't leave it. But today the Father has raised up his Son. Christ has been glorified. The Father says to him, "Come up, my Son. Thou hast triumphed, thou hast conquered, thou hast glorified my name. Now come and enter into thy glory. And the Comforter will descend and glorify those who have trusted in thee." We've seen Christ humbled, and we've seen him raised up. This is what Ephraim the Syrian says. He says, this is a stanza from his poem. He says, "Mary carried him as a child. The priest carried him as an offering. The cross carried him as one slain. Heaven carried him as God. Praise to his Father," is what Ephraim the Syrian says. So Christ has gone from being a child in Mary's arms to the man sitting at the throne of God with him, on his throne next to him. Beloved, Christ's victory is our victory. His glory is our glory. His honor is our honor. Christ says this to his Father. I already quoted you that he asks that his joy may be ours, but this is also what he says. He says, "Father, I will that where I am, they also whom thou hast given me may be with me, in order that they may behold my glory." What does this mean when Christ says, "Father, I want my servants to be with me that they may see my glory"? What does that mean? Beloved, to see God is to be glorified. When Moses saw God, he came down, his face was radiant, because to see God is to be glorified. If you see God's glory, you are glorified. If you're in the same place as God, you are glorified. So when Christ says, "Come and behold my glory," what he's saying is, when you see me, you also will be glorified. You also will see me. In the next life, there will be those who depart from God's glory. But those who are brought into his glory will see his glory, and they will be glorified in this. Being in his presence is glory. And so when Christ has ascended to heaven, what he's saying is he's calling all men to say, come unto my glory. I will glorify you. Come where I am, and that you may be glorified also. Enter into my joy, and enter also into my glory. Enter into my honor, which is actually put upon you, because I am man. Enter into everything that I am going to give to you, because I have gained it for you with my strong hand and my outstretched arm. I've gained it for you. Brothers and sisters, the joy of Pascha should never decrease, but with ascension it should increase. This is the confirmation of Pascha. This is the height of Pascha. This is the crown of Pascha. And Christ is asking us to enter into his glory. Christ has ascended. We are also ascended with him. Let us live that we might be able to see his glory and enter into it. That his joy may be full in us, and that our eyes may be always filled with his light and with his glory, always now and ever, to the ages of ages. Amen.